Hey guys, how's it going? Steve, Interglobal Comics. I just wanted to do kind of a little market report on the Comic Connect auctions that ended earlier this week. Some pretty good sales in there, some pretty big foreign keys sold. Some things kind of came, first time to market on a big platform like that and really surprised people. So I'm coming in off of a cold, so sorry my voice is kind of raspy. All right, so first up we've got a Action Comics, this is 242, first appearance of Brainiac from Brazil, 5.5. This is a CBCS book. This one was pretty low for a while, and then, right in the last few minutes of the auction, it shot up to over $1,000. So right around $1,100, and all of these prices are without the buyer's premium added, so that's going to be another 15% on top of this price. So this was a good sale. It's a good looking book, not an easy book to find, out of Brazil. The last copy I purchased from a Brazilian seller, I paid, $300 for a raw copy, and I believe that copy ended up grading out to around a 4.5. I think it's 4.5, and I think that's the one I actually have on sale or for sale on eBay right now. But I was very surprised that this sold for this amount, and the 4.5 I have listed for, a few $100 less than that. I think I have it listed at $7.99 or best offer, and I've gotten 0 offers, 0 interest in it, very few page views. So I'm not really sure what's going on with it. Maybe I need to change the listing somehow, or mix it up a little bit. Because I would have thought by now I'd have gotten some, at least $400 or $500 offers on it, which I would, probably consider maybe $500 or $600 selling it. But this one sold for well over $1,000 when you add the buyer's premium. So I'm just kind of surprised my book is just sitting there on eBay not doing much. But sometimes just how it goes. So there's another Brazilian. This is a really hard book to find. This is the first appearance of Supergirl, Action Comics 252, and this one is a 5.5 CBCS. This one sold for $1,437 without the buyer's premium added, which I think is a pretty solid sale. And I've heard of these selling raw up to $1,000. I got mine, probably, a little bit less of a grade than this one. I paid, I think, about $400, maybe a little bit more, and then, plus shipping and everything. So it's probably closer to $5. But, once I get it graded, and I don't plan to sell it or anything, but I think it would be, worth obviously more once it's graded. But yeah, for $1,400, I think this was a decent sale for the seller, and I think a pretty good buy for the buyer, especially given how hard these are to track down. I don't think I got mine cheap, and the seller was a little upset that he sold it to me at that price. And I told him, I was like, hey, you told me the price, you set the price. I didn't ask for it. I just said, how much do you want for it? So, I guess he heard from another seller that he could have gotten way more money for it. But in the end, we made the sale, we made the deal happen. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But yeah, this one I think was a good buy at this price. So this is Journey into Mystery, album Gigante. So I think this is the second or third appearance of Thor, and I think this is the first appearance of Jane Foster. And this was an 8.0, so pretty high grade, and this sold for $293. So yeah, it's a pretty far cry from was it the Journey into Mystery? Is it 87? I think it is 85. I can't remember. The first appearance of Loki. So one of those sold for $4,000 at the Heritage auction, and it was high grade as well. But I think from what I've heard is that sale was actually a mistake, a technical error, and that book never actually sold at that price. I don't have any confirmation of that, but somebody messaged me that said they were the high bidder on it, and it was actually a mistake, and that Heritage kind of rescinded his bid, so that book never sold. I haven't heard, like I said, I haven't heard anything else about it, so I'm not sure if Heritage resold it or what happened with it. But for $4,000, that sale seemed crazy high. This seems kind of low, I guess, but this isn't really as key of a book. But still, $300 plus buyer's premium. You'd be hard pressed to find another 8.0 out of Brazil of this book probably. So it probably should have gone a little bit higher. But probably the seller's probably not too happy, but the buyers, I'm sure, pleased with that price. So this is another book that probably sold lower than the seller expected. This is the first appearance of Spider-Man in Brazil. There's no key comic inside. No, it's not. I think it's a few, maybe like in the teens or 20s of the stories inside. It's not like of the ASM run. It's not like AF15 or ASM1 story inside. But this is the first appearance of Spider-Man in Brazil, and it's a huge key in Brazil, but it's one of those books that's not really a big key, I don't think, in America. And I don't know if it ever will really be a big key in America, because no offense to the Brazilian collectors, but I don't really collect the first appearance in their country. I want the book that looks like the first appearance of that character in my country, which is the United States. So if this cover was the AF15 cover or even the ASM1 cover, I think it would have sold for obviously way more. And this price is probably what Brazilian collectors pay in Brazil for this book. Maybe a little bit more, but not much more. It's a big key for them. But like I said, on the international marketplace, it's not that big of a key. We've got Aquaman. I think this is like his first Silver Age appearance from Brazil. 7.5, so it's pretty high grade. Went for pretty cheap at $2.99. I'm not exactly sure what this book sells for on the American market in that grade, but I think for $2.99 this one pretty inexpensive. All right, so this was the huge sale of the auction. This was the Batman 1 from Indonesia. This was printed, I believe, in 1979. So it's not like a golden age book, and hopefully whoever bought it, read all the labeling, all the description. It's an amazing book, awesome book, and this is by far the highest sale ever recorded of it. These were selling from Indonesian sellers for around $500-$600, and even up to like $1,000, I would say. But after this sale, none of these are leaving Indonesia for cheap anymore. I wouldn't think any of them would be leaving for less than $1,000. It does not contain the Batman 1 story inside. It just kind of has a redrawn cover. That's the Batman 1 cover by the Indonesian artist. Can't remember his name right now. Starts with the DJ Dejan, something like that. I can't remember. But it's an amazing book. These Indonesian comics, I think, are underrated. Especially the ones that reprint the classic Golden Age covers, but they put kind of their own twist on them. I've got a few, and so I was happy to see this book sell at this price. Some people I read were complaining that basically it's just an homage or blah blah blah, but that's not really. This is it's different, and because Batman 1 was never sold in Indonesia, so this is that country's rendition of that cover, and it's the first time this cover was used in Indonesia. I wouldn't say it's Batman 1 because it doesn't have the story inside, but it does have that amazing classic cover on it. So definitely should sell for a premium. I was definitely surprised that it went that high. I was thinking maybe 1,000 to 2,000, but yeah, when it hit 5,751 plus the 15%, that was the biggest sale, I believe, of the auction. So and pretty cool, great for Indonesian books, and just a great, really hard to find comic for whoever bought it. This was the Batman, Superman, their first time teaming up. Classic I think it's a Golden Age book, Batman 31. This is Australian version, sold for $632. So this uses the same cover as the American, and a 7.0. That's pretty high grade. So I'm not exactly sure what this sells for on the American market, as in the American version, but I would think it's probably quite a bit more expensive than this book sold for. So this was a kind of a surprise to me, because kind of like that Superman, this is, not Superman, the Spider-Man with the, with the original Indonesian, or the original Brazilian cover on it. This is the first appearance of Batman, I believe, in Brazil from 1953. This is Batman 1, and this one went for kind of a bigger premium. This one sold for $2,000. So it's kind of like the opposite of that Spider-Man. Like the Spider-Man, is the first appearance in Brazil, and it didn't really sell for very much. And this is Batman's, first story in Brazil, and this one went for a pretty decent price. So, yeah, I guess you just never know what they're gonna sell for. I'm not sure if maybe they consider this like a rendition of the Batman 1 cover, because you got Robin swinging on the rope. I'm not really sure, but this one sold for $2,000. Then we've got the Batman 251 Brazilian edition, classic Neil Adams Joker cover, 8.5, which I believe is the highest on the census, or pretty close to it, at least on the CGC census. I don't really keep track of CBCS, but I think a lot of these books were submitted by Sky Ott, who's kind of comes from a famous family of comic collectors in Brazil, and they're very deeply invested in foreign comics. So I'm pretty sure he always graded through CBCS up until recently. He all his books are CBCS. That's why you see so many of them in this auction. So this was an 8.5. So like I said, I believe one of the highest graded. Sold for $977. Which sounds pretty good, but then you think that there was a sale, I believe it was maybe almost $3,000 on eBay that Josh Allen sold his for. And that was, I don't think it was like a 6.5 or maybe even a 7.0. I can't remember. Here we've got a higher grade book that sold for less. But with the foreign editions, there's just not enough like consistent sales to really, I think, have people keeping track of it. So, these buyers may not have known that one did sell for twice this amount. About maybe 2 years ago. I mean, the only people that would know that are people that are pretty heavily invested in foreign comics. And that obviously sold for more than what the American version goes for. So here we've got. This only sold for about half the amount at a higher grade. And that's not the only book that did that same situation. So we've got Sergeant Fury 1, signed by Stan Lee. This is the Mexican edition, La Prensa 6.0, sold for $700. Not many Sergeant Fury fans out there, I don't think, or who ends up becoming, or who is Nick Fury. But just a kind of a cool book, especially, like I said, any foreign signed by Stan, I think is pretty cool. This one was another pretty big sale. I was pretty surprised by this. El Sobrante Hombre Araña, which is Spider-Man 129, the Mac division, the Mac 129, pretty hard to find. I hear this book kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes one year there'll be a few, and then there won't be any for like a couple years. Recently, I haven't seen one come up for sale for a long time. I bought one on eBay, a while ago, and I think I paid right around maybe $500 for it, or actually maybe a little bit less. So, $983. It's not a bad price, I guess, when I paid about half of that for a raw copy, which ended up grading out to like a 5.5, and that was a few years ago. So obviously the market has changed, but I really like this cover with the pink lettering and just the different kind of layout they'd used for the 129 cover. This one, and I think probably the Brazilian 129 are my favorite of the set. We've got the first appearance of Green Goblin, ASM 14, Brazilian edition, 6.5, or I'm sorry, Mexican edition, 6.5 La Prensa, sold for $920. Seems pretty reasonable in that grade. It's a pretty classic key, and none of these Mexican keys are definitely not easy to find. And this is the Spider-Man 50 Mexican edition La Prensa, sold for $563. First appearance of Kingpin. Great book, great cover. Really hard one to find. $563 sounded a little cheap to me, but it's just so hard, like I said, to put a number on these books that rarely sell. And this one you maybe could have put on eBay for twice that and just taken offers and maybe gotten more, but who knows. The market's a strange beast right now. It's just kind of no telling what's going to happen with it. Some books go high, some books are going real high, some books are going real low. It's really hard to pin what's going on. So this was kind of the grail of the auction, the big book, the Hombre Araña 128, the Spider-Man wedding issue, non-canon, Jose Luis Duran. So this is the second highest graded on any of the censuses. This is the 8.5 that was owned by Tim Bildhauser. The one that's higher is owned by John Z. And I think his is a 9.0 or is it 9.2? I can't remember. It's in the nines though. So we had the 6.5 sell a few months ago for $35,000. So people were speculating that this 8.5 could go $50,000, $60,000, $75,000. Who knows? So the owner put it up for auction and sold it for $24,999 without the buyer's premium. So that's $10,000 less than the 6.5 sold for. These books are just such a small pool of buyers that are willing to spend so much money on foreign keys that really it's like you just don't know. Is it going to go big? Is it going to go small? It's always just a gamble. But the good thing for this book is I know the owner, or at least I've heard the owner paid hardly anything for his copy, because he was one of the kind of the original big foreign collectors early in the 2010s and early 2011, 2012. They were getting into it, and they got these books for super cheap. So probably less than $100 investment turned into $25,000. And he had this listed actually on eBay at one point a few years ago when the book first started heating up, and he listed it for $15,000. And I'm in a group chat with a few different guys, and we were all kind of laughing like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, what's he thinking that high of a price? But he did the right thing and was smart and held on to it, and got another $10,000 on top of that. And now we know that book has sold for $30,000 plus. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what this sale does to the market. Is it going to kind of drop the market a little bit? Is it going to help the market for this book, or even any other copies going to come over for sale? It might be another 2 or 3 years till another one comes out. So we'll just have to kind of keep an eye out and see what happens with it. This is a Spanish pulp, I think it's like a classic. I know one of these sold for a crazy amount of money recently. I don't really know much about pulps. This is a Shadow 1 pulp, La Sombra, from Spain, sold for $638. You used to be able to find these on the Spanish auction websites for like under $100 all day long. So this book is, I checked recently, and someone's definitely cleared them out, because this book is no longer can be found on any of the Spanish sites I normally use. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, with pulps, CGC getting into the pulp market, where these will go, and if they're going to kind of follow their American counterparts, just like the foreign comics did. All right, next we got the Fantastic Four 52, first appearance of Black Panther from Mexico, La Prensa, 5.5, sold for $500. Not a bad sale in my opinion. I think I paid about $300 for mine, which ended up grading out to 5.0. It's not an easy book to find. Great cover, awesome character. It's just there's kind of no telling what's going to happen in the future with MCU with that character. But either way, he's cemented in pop culture. Black Panther is always going to be popular. It's a great book to have. So this was the big surprise for me of the auction. I'm just kind of bummed I didn't get my finances in a row to buy this book, because this is a 6.5 signed by Stan Lee, X-Men 1 from Mexico, sold for $4,352. The last raw sale I think was around $3,500 or $3,000 around there, and I ended up being a 4.5. I bought that on eBay like 2 years ago, and I paid $3,200 I think for it, and I really thought this 6.5 was going to go nuclear. I thought this was going to go over $10,000 for sure. Especially when you compare it to what a American version sells for. Nonetheless, signed by Stan Lee. But $4,352. That seems very cheap for this book. But who knows? X-Men is going to be a ways off, in the MCU, and before Marvel or Disney really does anything with the property. So, people are just getting tired of waiting, I guess. But still my favorite character, still my favorite book to collect. And had I known this was going so cheap, I would have tried to jump on it. Brave and the Bold, first appearance of Teen Titans, sold for $322. It's the Brazilian edition. I don't know much of the price history on this book for the American version, but it seems pretty cheap. I sold a really beat version on eBay for I think close to $100. So 7.0 seems like it should have gone higher than that. And this was another big sale at the auction. This was this ASM 1, sold for 8.0, sold for $2,587. So this was printed after that Thor book with Spider-Man on the cover, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man in Brazil. And that book sold for $500 and is their first appearance. But here we have, Spider-Man's second appearance in America on the cover of a book. And at 8.0, I believe this is the highest one of these has sold for. Sold for $2,587. So definitely a solid sale. Great looking book. Love the colors on these. And I think they were printed in 1969. So it is a vintage Silver Age book. Another one, Spider-Man 3, sold 7.5, sold for $432. One of my goals the last few years was to collect all these like Spider-Man villain first appearances from Brazil, and I think I got pretty much all the big ones. So this $432. This is a book you probably could have picked up raw for under $75 a few years ago. Not a bad buy, and especially if you can find a decent copy. I doubt you'll be able to find very many cheap anymore though. And the first appearance of Electro, signed by Stan Lee, 7.0 from Brazil, sold for $638. And I think this is the last one. So this is I believe it was Danish, Hero for Hire, Luke Cage 1 from Denmark, I believe, sold for $530, which actually kind of surprised me. I thought this would go pretty cheap just because Luke Cage isn't like a huge character and more kind of a second tier character, but $530. It's a good looking cover, good looking fonts. I like the layout. So 7.0, not a bad sale for whoever sold that. But yeah, I think that is it. So I will keep an eye on the eBay books and try and make another market report for those books, hopefully within the next week or two. All right, hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.